Hi everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and this is a hole-by-hole breakdown of the back nine of the Belton course at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Belton Stop Heritage Park Silver Series event. So, hole 10's another example of a power hole. It's 726 feet, but more than anything, this illustrates why I personally, tell me in the comments why I'm wrong, but I personally like artificial out of bounds. So the course designers here at Belton have a certain amount of land to work with. Gotta fit 18 holes out here. Without artificial OB, this hole is just step up and throw as hard as you can. That's not golf, that's distance. They put a artificial OB on the left side and the right side of the fairway. Now they opted to make it really wide, which means if you're throwing a controlled golf shot, a low hyzer flip, a low straight shot, you're not really putting out of bounds in play. However, you're giving yourself a longer approach shot, a more challenging approach shot with out of bounds 20 feet behind the basket. You don't want to throw 350, 400 feet, 20 feet from OB. That's tough. But if you just rip it and are just going for pure distance, big high anhyzer flex, trying to get closer to the hole, you may put out of bounds in play. And if you try to throw a roller, which with no OB, you may be doing all day without the wind, OB's in play with the roller. So you're going to be throwing a controlled golf shot, taking into consideration, having to think on the hole, which I like. So the play here is to throw a golf shot really, really hard and give yourself a reasonable approach. 726 par 4, you definitely want to three this one. All right, so the basket's here. As you can see, it looks a little longer than 20 feet long, but out of bounds is behind the basket. The shot on the approach shot, I think most players are going to be leaning towards the righty backhand hyzer. As you can see, it's wide open coming in this direction. You can't see behind the trees. You can swing the lefty shot around, and if you land too far on the left side of the fairway, it's what you might wind up doing. But the lefty shot involves, you can't pull it in too tight. You gotta stall it out to the right and dive bomb it. This is one of the holes where there is enough obstacles around the target where, unless you're within a couple hundred feet, you're not really even thinking about some tricky line between the trees. You kind of just throw it up to the basket. You're either going to be close or you're going to hit something and you're still going to be inside the circle for your putt. But yeah, you definitely want to three this one. Hole 11 is 293 feet to an island green. Even though it's an island green, this hole doesn't require any real strategy. The island's 120 feet front to back, 85 feet right to left. The middle of the island is like 290 feet away. So you're attacking this one. There's no strategy on this. A touring player should be able to get on the green the vast majority of the time. The only real risk is the closest out of bounds is 35 feet to the right and down a slope. So if you are going to miss, you want to miss left by a little bit. But dead center of the green is 10 feet short, 7.5 feet left. So really, you're just throwing at this one. And that was short, not a good throw at all, still on the green. Hole 12. It's kind of a neat hole. 369 foot par 3. It's neat because it's sort of two holes in one. You got 300 feet completely wide open. But at 300 feet, you got to hit a 25 foot wide gap in the trees. And then you go 70 feet up a hill and to the right through the woods. So obviously the first goal here is you need to hit that gap. If you hit the gap, you're probably going to par the hole or birdie it. Now, it's a hill. I mean, you can always get rollaways. That's always a risk, but that's a bad break. Hit the gap, you're fine. Miss the gap, you can still three the hole, but it's going to be challenging. You're going to have your work cut out for you, depending on your lie. Now, you hit the gap. It's definitely a sidearm because you want to penetrate and veer off to the right. I think the strategy here is not going to be to try to peer the shot up to the basket. You got to hit the gap really high, maybe cut it to the right side. I think the better play is to try to throw it down the middle of the gap, taking the bogey out of play, tail off to the right, give yourself 3 uphill putts, and then if you cash 1 or 2 of them, you're feeling pretty good about it. And it's exactly what I said. I got about a 30-something foot uphill putt for birdie, no risk. Okay, the dreaded hole 13. It's listed as a par 3. Everyone's chatting about the par. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's what number you get on the hole. 399 feet through a tunnel, 275 feet, a pretty decent gap. So you're supposed to get the first 275. Past that point, I mean, there's a couple windows to aim for, but you know, you're more or less just trying to throw basically at the hole. And when you hit, you hope you don't get a bad break. Same example as I always talk about in the woods. If you hit late, you should be able to pitch out, lay it up and get a 4 at worst. But if you hit late, you may have a window to the hole as well. If you hit early, big trouble. I think this is one of those holes because it's 400 feet. If you're going to get through the trees, there's no benefit to throwing 330 feet and then you get through the trees and then you have a 70-foot shot. You might as well throw a 400-foot throw, because if you get through the trees, if you happen to get a 2, sick bonus. No advantage to splitting the gap and just getting a par anyways. Ooh. I mean, that was a few feet off, but that was, it was heading there. Hole 14, 354 feet. It's just a sidearm hyzer shot, slightly downhill, so probably plays like 320 or 330. There's a gap at the beginning of the fairway, but you're not having to cut this close. You're pretty much aiming for the middle of the gap, so the gap probably shouldn't be in play. The only obstacles on this hole is right where the sidearm is going to come in. There's a windmill and there's a tree. Now, this is one of those examples of if you want to try to come in the backside or the front side, it's going to be a lot harder to get to the hole that way. So you take the obstacle out of play, but a perfect shot's leaving yourself a putt. But if you go too wide by going long or too tight by going short, next thing you know, you tried to get too tricky and you're 30 to 40 feet away. I think the best shot here is just to ignore the obstacles, throw at the hole. If it gets through, you're parked. If it hits something, you're still putting. You got a 20, 25-foot putt anyway. So not a whole lot of advantage, I feel, to trying to get too tricky here. Just pretend there's nothing in the way and throw your shot. Hole 15, 620-foot par 4. The majority of the flight is wide open, but it banks left. At the end, it goes up a hill a little bit through a tunnel. Even though the hole goes to the left, you're not thinking left at all off the tee pad. And in fact, if you try to cut it left off the drive, you're going to give yourself a difficult upshot. The goal here isn't to go left, it's to penetrate as far as possible because, well, obviously you're closer to the hole. But the farther you are, the better angle you have up to the basket. Like, this is one you're gonna want a 3. Hole 16, 235 feet, just your basic woods hole. You can see the basket. There's a tunnel all the way there. You basically just throw at it. The only consideration is that it is uphill, so you have to gauge your distance. Probably plays like 280 or 290, but you just throw at this one. That's it. Hole 17, 577-foot par 4. In my opinion, best hole in the course. Through a tunnel, right off the tee pad, down a hill. You got to push it far. It also heads off to the right, and we'll show you the landing zone when we get up there. It's a fantastic finish to the hole. Now, if the goal was simply try to get as close to the target as possible to give yourself the easiest approach shot, you would throw your sidearm and you would just miss the trees on the right. But the advantage gained, the extra, the shorter approach shot by doing that does not outweigh the risk of hitting something early. So even though you're gonna lose a little bit of distance, you definitely are throwing this one smack dab through the middle of the gap. You always have to take into account what happens if you're off. If you hit early, you're in deep doo-doo. So you wanna throw the middle of the gap. You wanna make sure you push your distance. You don't wanna hug it and pull it off right. It's just a really tricky approach shot. If you're too far away, you're gonna have a really hard time. So you want to push far. Don't be thinking about turning right, just get your distance. Let the disc fade to the right at the end. But distance, well, hitting the first gap and getting distance outweigh everything else. Okay, yeah, do it like that. So the basket's on top of a mound, just like, I forget what hole yesterday, but unlike the other mound, this mound's really big. You do not want to land at the base of it. There is a flat landing area up top, kind of hard to stop up there, but it's not super steep. So you can land up the mound, but you don't want to be putting from all the way down there. I mean, it's too hard of a shot. If you're at the base of the hill and you run it, even though there's a reasonable chance of making it or hitting something, you're not just risking it going past and down the hill. You're risking having to do it again and again and again. You're actually risking a disaster of a hole. I'm even, some places at the base of the hill, if I'm at the bottom of the mound, I might even lay up just to take my bogey and move on. I can live with that. This one, you gotta swing the hyzer out to the right, try to get it up there. If you're close, you're going for it. If you're in the bottom of the hill, you might not be. I hit by the mound, it rolled to the bottom. I'm gonna try another shot. So now I'm thinking the Anheuser shot that lands flat might be the better play. It's a trickier shot, less likely to hit near the hole, but increases the chances that if it hits, it stays. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'm thinking Anheuser. Again, trickier shot, but you got to play what happens, because that last one hit right by the top of the mound. Didn't gain me anything. So, a perfect golf hole. Love everything about it. This is where my approach shot, my first approach shot landed. It hit up by the basket, rolled away. It's not a bad break. I came at it at a bad angle. There's a good sized landing area up top. I'm not gonna try to land this one on top. This is one of the strategies that a lot of players, especially newer players, get wrong, is the goal is not to get under the basket. The goal is to give yourself the highest percentage chance of getting up and down in two. So when you're here, you're not trying to land under the basket. Instead, you can land the shot 5, 7, 8 feet short on the dirt 100% of the time with no risk. You're gonna make that putt. It's not about getting under the basket, it's about getting the lowest number possible. Hole 18, 465, OB down the left side. Boy, it's a left to right shot. I'm not getting there with the sidearm. I mean, I don't throw 465-foot sidearm hyzers. Really, the goal here for me is just going to be to push the distance, because if you come up short right, you could get behind some trees. Like, there's no advantage to going right. Really, you just want to get the distance. For me, have an easy approach for 3. A backhand, I mean, I don't even know how you get there with a backhand in the air. Now, there is one option here that you may see, because it is the finish hole, is that if you roll this hole, you can get up and down in two. Every player in the field can throw a roller to this basket. You risk an OB, probably not happening very often on the first round, but if necessary, there is the option of going for two if you need it, which is what you want on the finish hole. Wow, this is a course. Well, first off, I hope you enjoyed the hole-by-hole breakdown. Please comment. If you like these, I will do these for every single tournament this year. I thought it'd be kind of fun when you're watching coverage to have an idea what many of the pros, not all, but what many of them may be thinking on the holes and why they're doing what they do. My other goal is that even if you don't play Belton, because the vast majority of people who see this never will, hopefully you can read between the lines, or grab the strategy I'm talking about and see how it applies to your course, because strategy is fairly universal. There's nothing here that's different than the strategy on a similar hole on a different course. Now, forget strategy for a second. Overview, just my opinion of the course. It's really hard. I love that. I love hard courses. There's a lot of hard par threes. It's hard. The holes that would be more routine, they put OB. I love the man-made OB. I can't think of a single place where I would have changed the OB or added OB. I mean, they just did a fantastic job out here. There are advantages to throwing far that I don't have because I don't throw far, but that's my damn fault for getting old. I think every single skill set, far, accurate, sidearm, rollers, putting, strategy, you should be rewarded for every single skill set. So the fact that there are rewards for throwing far, just because I don't throw far, I got no problem with. You should have an advantage over me when you throw farther on some holes. And you certainly do, but that's cool. This is definitely a course where there are shots to attack, but there are decisions to be made. And that's the play I'm gonna have to make. I am going to be playing more conservative on some of the holes, but not all of them. I mean, you got to go for it. But overall, that's what's great about this course. Decisions to be made, choices to make, risk versus reward. You can attack this course. Absolutely. In fact, when the entire field is attacking this course, or 50 top players are attacking the course, every round you're going to have a few super hot scores. Maybe hard to sustain over 3 rounds, but you're going to see it out here. So I love it. I can't wait to play it this weekend. And I'm going to predict right now, I'm going to say 3 under per round, 9 under for 3 rounds is in the cash. So it's not going to take spectacular to cash. It's going to take not making mistakes, taking the birdies where they come. But you do have to be spectacular to win. So that's also the goal. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you, Belton, and everybody here. This is amazing.